right, hello everyone, and welcome to the Astoria Bookshop launch event for Boys I Know. We can't do real applause because there's no crowd, so we're gonna pretend there was like a little applause noise. I'm Laura. I'm the events coordinator for the Astoria Bookshop, and if you don't know who we are a general interest bookstore located in Western Queens. And we serve everyone, and we try to highlight amazing authors like Anna, who you're celebrating today. Just some general housekeeping rules. Keep the chat nice, respectful. My rule of thumb is nothing you wouldn't want your mom or boss to see, and that usually works. And other than that, you can say hi, but if you have questions, there's a little Q&A bubble on the side. It's a little speech bubble with a question mark in it. And you can ask your questions there and vote on other people's questions if there's something that you see that you really want answered. Other than that, you are obviously encouraged to buy the book. We will be getting some book plates in, so you can get a signed copy. And I will put a link, which I did not do, which I usually do. I'm so sorry. I will put a link to buy the book on our website. But yeah, that is pretty much it from me. I'm going to read some bios, and then we're gonna move on to the discussion. I will get the heck off the screen. Anna Gracia grew up biracial in the Midwest, spending her formative years repeatedly answering the question, "What are you?" before finding her way as a young adult author. She was a CPA, a public school teacher, a tennis coach, and for one glorious summer, a waitress at a pie shop. Pretty sure that's a musical now. She now lives on the West Coast, raising 3 kids and writing stories about girls navigating a world full of double standards. And Katie, is it Zhao?
Zhao.
Zhao?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry. Katie Zhao is the author of The Dragon Warrior duology, How We Fall Apart, Last Gamer Standing, and Winnie Zhang series. I'm off my game. And forthcoming The Descendants duology. She grew up in Michigan, where there was little for her to do besides bury her nose in a good book or a writing journal. She graduated from the University of Michigan with a BA in English and a minor in political science. She also completed her master's in accounting there. Wow. In her spare time, Katie enjoys reading, singing, dancing badly, I'm sure it's great, and checking out Instagram-worthy restaurants. She now lives in New York City. Also, just a note to you people out there with young readers, the Dragon Warrior series sells very well in our store, and I've heard great things. So yeah. All right.
I think we can take over now.
All right. Woo! I feel like I'm like left in the classroom, like the teacher left, and I'm like, okay, you guys, what do you want to do?
Yes, that's exactly how I feel. Yeah. So how are you feeling? Like, this is your first book coming out. It's a young adult novel. We love young adult. Yeah.
Wait, so okay, well, I want to talk about this. So you used to write middle grade and then you jumped to adult. Did you mean to start with middle grade?
Oh, what? I don't know why we're talking about me.
But I can't help it. Sorry.
No,
but
it's okay.
I thought we would talk about writing YA, right? Like how different it is.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I always set out to write young adult, actually. Like ever since I was a teen, I would just like write books, and I just really lumped them all together as YA. And it didn't occur to me until, like my critique partners brought it up that my writing voice naturally is a little more suited for middle grade. Because like I have just like a habit of what I call like inserting anime humor into my books, and it doesn't work so well with YA, but like it works well with middle grade. So The Dragon Warrior was actually supposed to be a young adult. Then I aged it down to middle grade, and it like sold like that. But yeah, that's like the story of how I sort of like kind of came to do both in a roundabout way.
I always think that's kind of interesting. Like, I feel like most people sort of you write in the voice that you have and the way that you think, and I think so. Am I just a teenager inside? Because that's like when people say, "Oh, your voice sounds young adult. And I'm like, well, that's just me. Do I sound like a teenager? Like, are there people around there like walking around and they just sound like 80-year-old people inside? Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah.
voice naturally an age group. I think it's so interesting.
I mean, I like to say that I'm like a child at heart. So that like explains the middle grade writing voice. But to be honest, I feel like young adult, like the voice in young adult has been trending upward.
Yeah.
Like, upward. Like when I was like a teenager, the YA I was reading, I feel like the voice felt a little younger.
It's true. Somehow at the same time racier. I don't know. It's very interesting. There were some weird things happening in like the 90s. Wait, we're not at all the same age. I take that back.
In the 90s, I could not read yet.
You were born in the 90s?
I was born in 96.
Whatever.
Yeah. So, like, tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind Boys I Know.
Oh, okay. You want like the long spiel or the short spiel?
Let's go with long. It's your
long one. Okay. All right. So I have like a whole long story, but essentially, like the shorter version of the long story is basically like after I'd had my third kid, I was like at home and I was kind of like, I'd left teaching, I'd left accounting, and was sort of like, what do I do with my life? Really boring, staying at home. Like, I don't have any adult interaction or stimulation. And so I started freelancing articles because I thought, oh, okay, cool, I'll get paid for this. Not realizing that, I don't know if anyone knows out there, but the freelance writing market is rough. They'll be like, sell your soul, 1,000 words, $50. We'll pay you in 2 months. So I did that gig for a while. And then right before, like in the lead up to the 2016 election, there was like a big hubbub over Planned Parenthood, which now seems quaint. It was like discussing whether we should federally fund Planned Parenthood or not. Should they receive any funds? Blah, 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 whatever. Anyway, and so I wrote this article that I had pitched, and it was about the importance of contraception and reproductive access and Planned Parenthood for teenage girls. And I couldn't get it picked up anywhere. And so I was like, well, I kind of don't want to let this go. And I decided to sort of morph it into a book. So I sort of like took that, and then I took like another identity essay that I wrote, and I like smashed them together and was like, I'm going to write a whole book about it. That's my long spiel.
Oh, cool. I feel like that wasn't even that long of a spiel.
Oh, well, I don't know. It feels long. I'm like, okay, so it started when I was a child. So, well, it always seems kind of weird because this is like what led to it. And so that's usually what I describe. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of weird because I feel like we talk about it a lot being the big focus, but in reality, in the book, the point of like emergency reproductive care is a very small piece of it. Like that's not what the book is about. Yeah. So it's always a little bit strange to be like, well, I had the idea of it because I was talking about Plan B, right? When my book isn't about that, but it has it incorporated into it. And sort of like the point of it is to say that it's just this little blip on the radar of this girl's life, sort of as it should be. You know, it doesn't have to be like this big momentous occasion because she doesn't have to be pregnant. She can just take a Plan B and move on and like do all the things that she was planning to do, which was the point of it. But sometimes I wonder if people are like going in expecting it to be like an abortion book, and it's not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's what's cool about YA is that it can be about many things. Like, I know when I was a teenager, I was just like going through a lot. And so the young adult stories that I guess like I'm more drawn to are not ones that necessarily focus on like one experience or anything. Just like you kind of get to follow the character and see them grow in like many different ways throughout the book. Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. Let's see what I plan to ask you next.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, you also like really, I feel like go out of your way to write like strong, layered female characters. And
yeah,
I mean, right? Like I'm kind of of curious because I do feel like this is I think it's across all like minorities and marginalized identities, right? Where you worry a little bit like, am I making my character into like a good example? You know what I mean? And so like I'm kind of curious how other people battle that because you've put out multiple books. And so like I fretted over this for, the majority of the time because I do feel like there's a lot of pressure to feel like you want to represent your people well. Because honestly, the number of people who will be like, I learned a lot about Taiwanese culture from this. And I'm like, it's great, but it's just oh my God, it's just one person. Please don't generalize. Like, for the love of God, please don't assume all Taiwanese people are like this. I don't know. How do you battle it?
No, I feel like I've always had kind of the same or similar thoughts. Well, I think my middle grade does a better job of having main characters who are generally portrayed in like a good light. And then with young adult, I'm like, I can like play around a little bit.
I know, and I appreciate that about you. Like, how did you? That's what I'm saying. Like, I like it. Like, how did you decide to be like? Were you like, I'm gonna make this bitch a villain? Like.
Yeah, I mean, I think villains deserve stories too.
Totally.
Yeah, I also feel like as a teen, I was more prone to making mistakes than when I was younger, or maybe they just felt bigger in my head. And so I don't know. I don't feel like it's sending a good message to like any teenage readers if all they ever see in young adult novels is like characters who are like perfect in every way or like always do the right thing. I'm not interested in characters like that because that's not like a reflection of our reality. The reality is that like we're all human, we're all gonna make mistakes, and I'm very interested in like how those characters like grapple with those mistakes. Do they like make bigger mistakes, or do they like sort of like try to learn from it and like be a better person? I think like it's good to show teens that like people are not just like one dimensional, because then like, when they inevitably like make some mistake at school or something, then they're not like, oh my gosh, I'm like the worst person ever. They'll be like, I'm human, and I will be like this character in this book and make it through and like try to be a better person. That's kind of like the thought process behind me wanting to write characters like that. And also because like writing, I'm like always writing Asian American female leads. I feel like we don't have a lot of characters like that who are allowed to be messy, and there's like a whole like weird stereotype about Asian females specifically being kind of like perfect and like submissive and whatever.
Totally.
Yeah, and I'm not about that. So,
well, yes, obviously same, that's
yeah. So that's kind of like why, I don't know. I've like always been interested in like reading and writing about characters who are imperfect and sometimes like make the wrong choices. Yeah. So what is like your favorite part of the writing process?
When I'm done.
I feel that. It always, it always feels so good to like have written. Like I love, especially when I was younger, I used to love just like I would like write a whole chapter and then like the next day I would read through it and be like, oh yes, I'm like the greatest writer here. I don't do it anymore now because I don't have time. I just
like in those days too where you read and you're like, what? No.
Yeah.
And you know what? I drive my friends crazy because I'm a deleter. I don't save backups. I don't like if I don't like it, it's gone. I don't like stash it somewhere.
Yeah.
I just throw it away and start over. I don't like keepsake little things. So I'm like, so sometimes if I'm in a bad mood, I have to close the computer before I'm like, trash it all. And then because that has happened.
Yeah. I basically swing between thinking I'm the greatest writer ever and then thinking that I should have never been allowed to publish a book and like, how am I here?
You know what it is? I will say, so I downloaded my own audiobook. because somebody asked me, like, you have an audiobook? And I was like, yeah, I think it's getting made. And they're like, well, it says it's for sale. And I was like, oh, I guess I never heard back about that. Like, so for the record, I don't listen to audiobooks. I'm like not a great auditory processor. I like check out. It's just so super not my thing. So this is the second audiobook I've ever listened to in my life. The first one being The Old Man and the Sea that we had to listen to in school on audiobook in the 4th grade. Why? I don't know. So I'm listening to my own audiobook, and it's interesting because I do feel like it's almost like an edit letter. Like I'm listening to it and I think like, oh, that's not the way I pictured that being said. You know, like, oh, that's not the way I picture. And it's not bad, right? There's nothing wrong with it, but it made me realize like, I guess that's my job, right? Like to make sure that people are reading it in the way that I'm reading it in my head. And so I was like, I'm really glad I did this exercise because, right. But then at the same time, like when I hear certain like passages read, I'm like, wow, that's like so much better than like when I was doing it in my head, right? So like you swing from like this, I'm amazing to being like, ooh, I did not write that correctly. And that is a mouthful to say, you know? So
have you ever had the experience where like, I actually don't think I've listened to my audiobooks, but like sometimes I have like transferred my manuscripts to an e-reader and like I read through it on there and I'm like, did I write this? Or like, have you read through your finished book yet? Because it's a very strange experience. It's almost like,
did I catch all the typos? I did.
Yeah, I have done that. Yeah. That's not.
Yeah, it is. It's a totally different experience. Well, especially because I feel like by the time you get to like past pages, which is how I didn't catch all the typos, I really just went through and said okay to all the changes instead of reading it like I was supposed to. I thought I'd get 2 passes at it. I didn't. I just assumed that there was another one and then it never came back to me. And I was like, I guess these typos are never getting fixed.
Oh, no.
So then I felt like by the time I read the hard copy, I was like, oh, I haven't actually really read this in a while.
Yeah.
When I did like copy edits and stuff, I didn't read through the whole thing again.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm a corner cutter.
I mean, honestly, I've done the same. Like, I feel, well, because it's just like a lot of work to like read through every line. And like generally like copy editors are good at catching like errors. Like the most I've caught like after a book was like published was, you know, oh, there should have been like an apostrophe here. It wasn't anything that was like a huge deal.
No, I mean, I only have like 3, but I'm like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, it is what it is. I mean, at some point the book comes out and no book is ever going to be like fully perfect, unfortunately.
No, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, one day when you're like several books into your career, you'll look back at your first book and be like, why did I publish this?
Well, no, it just made me think because when I was listening to audiobook, right, like because they do say like, okay, if you're proofing something, the best way to do it is read it aloud. I'm like, I'm not going to sit there and read my book aloud. It's going to take like a day, right? And sure enough, right, the audiobook is like 8 hours or something like that. So it's kind of like cool because I get to listen to it and I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. This is a totally different experience. I've never listened to an audiobook. Like blowing my mind.
Yeah.
I wanted to like hear it so that I could hear her pronounce the Chinese better. Because I've been having to like record the first chapter for people and I'm like, oh, you're gonna hear my Chinese.
Did your publisher make you like go through Chinese pronunciations? Because I've had that for every audiobook.
They only asked me about like the white people name pronunciation. It was shocking. Oh. And then, and sure enough, like, right. So because when I had selected, right, I was like listening and I was like, okay, I can tell that this speaker is going to, you know what I mean? I'm like, I can tell that she is a Chinese like native speaker when I chose her. So I wasn't worried and they didn't ask me any pronunciation. And so it's great because when I'm hearing it, I'm like, oh, like it sounds so lovely. That is not what I sound like on my recording. Like, you know, like, it's so like delicately and nice. And I'm like hitting the tones hard. Like, I want to make sure you really know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. Are you a Chinese native speaker? Do you speak Chinese? Like
I speak Mandarin, not you. So I actually, Mandarin was my first language technically. I didn't even know English till I was like What? Sorry?
I totally I'm always like Chinese and then I'm like Mandarin.
Oh.
I do it all the time and I don't think about it. Okay, continue.
No, I mean I say Chinese a lot too.
So Mandarin was your first language. Cool.
It was. I was born here, but my parents only spoke Mandarin to me, and so I, being 3, would speak Mandarin back.
Yeah.
Didn't really have any interaction with English speaking people till I went to kindergarten. And then my mom likes to tell me about how I would just spend every day crying because think about it. My parents dropped me off at this strange.
I know, it's true. Yeah, I know.
Speak my language.
I know. And you're in Michigan.
And I'm in Michigan.
Listen, I'm in San Francisco. We have tons of non-English speakers. It's totally fine. We have programs set up for it. But I even remember being in school. Anytime that we would get a foreign transfer student, they would always put them near me. Always. They always sat next to me. And I never really thought anything of it until I was an adult. And then I thought, you know what? I bet I know why they put them next to me.
Now that you mention it, I'm thinking back and I'm like, oh, that's happened to me.
You know what I'm saying? I really didn't think anything of it. I thought, oh, well, they probably just picked me because I'm welcoming. But now I'm like, I think there were other factors at play.
Yeah. Gosh. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, well then you should have no trouble. My mom was on speed dial. As I'm which tone is the second or third? Am I saying this right?
Oh, so wait. So you're not a native Mandarin speaker, I'm guessing, right?
I was a Saturday school kind of child.
Oh,
weekend Chinese school kid.
For me, it was Sunday, but yeah.
Yeah, ours was Saturday, so it wouldn't interfere with church. Yeah, and I just remember it was forever. It was so early and so far away, and I would fall asleep every day. It was at 7 a.m. on a Sunday. It was something absurd, right? And it was far because we had to go into the city because we were in Minnesota, right? So we had to drive into Minneapolis or something. I don't really remember, but probably because I'm the youngest. So all my older sisters, they all have better Chinese, right? But I'm the fifth. So by the time it got to me, it was my parents had long given up trying to speak it at home, and they just up to the school. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't we're only speaking Chinese in the home anymore. It was by then they were we give up. Just go to the school. Maybe you'll learn something.
Yeah. Yeah, that happened in my family too. I'm the oldest, so I definitely had the strongest Mandarin background. And then my middle sister, Mandarin was okay. The youngest sister can't really speak. She can understand, which is good, but she didn't even have to go to Chinese school or anything. Lucky.
So my kids, I have 3 kids, and I was doing the Saturday school Chinese, even though, listen, I don't know why we do this to ourselves. I'm I have nothing but terrible memories of it. Every single one of my friends was damn Saturday school, Sunday school, whatever, right? We all have these terrible memories, and I'll be are you putting your kids in weekend school? And they're yes, I am. And we all do it. And so I put my kids in the weekend school, and they actually didn't hate it. Their school was nothing like mine, right? Our school, it was you get a question wrong, go stand in the corner. They're making crafts and it's a real a now, right? It's integrated with San Francisco style curriculum, right? Where it's whole learning. And yet they would still come home and be oh, Chinese school's so boring. We made an omelet or something. And I'm all we had was full sheets, and you filled them out over and over and over again. So they went for several years, and it was okay. And then the pandemic hit, and I pulled them out. And so now my 3rd kid will probably never go to it. So
yeah, it happens.
He speaks no Chinese. It's terrible. Anyway, that is not book related, but whatever.
Oh yeah. I don't know how we got on this subject, but I was gonna say, now that I'm older, I really regret not I guess just not being more diligent in Chinese school and really trying to
you shove your children into it. We all have it. I took it in college because I felt so bad.
Yeah. I don't feel bad enough to actively try to speak Mandarin every day, But
Same.
I
I don't
feel,
even do Duolingo anymore.
yeah.
I know. This is how we all
Anyway,
end up.
let's talk about your book some more because we're very off topic
I'm
now.
so sorry. People didn't want to come and hear me like espouse my theories on language retention in a multicultural family. I have thoughts.
I think the people would want to know, like, because this is my next question. This people wants to know. What is it that draws you to writing YA?
My voice, apparently. No, I mean, I think my voice, I always knew that, but also when I went and got my teaching credential, like it was like no brainer. I wanted to do high school. And when I was coaching tennis for a lot of years, I was coaching in high schools. Like I just really like that age range. It's my favorite. I think that teens are the best because they're sort of like they're adult enough to hold real, meaningful, thoughtful conversations, but they're like not so old that they're like set in their ways. You know what I mean? Like they're
Yeah.
open to more like ideas and exploration, and they also don't like sugarcoat everything with bullshit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm never like, I wonder if this teen is lying to me when they're being nice to me. Like that, like you just don't get the same social politics, I feel like. So I just really enjoy it because I feel like they're still really like hopeful about the world, but old enough to be a little bit cynical. So
Yeah. Do you feel like you're like drawn to writing YA because of, I guess, like your own teen experiences? Like, is there something that about what you were like as a teenager that keeps you like just coming back to writing for that age category?
you know what? So I thought about this because I do feel like, right, I feel like a lot of people are like, I wrote this for my younger self. And I was like, I don't think that's me.
Oh,
Which is like a weird thing to say, even like, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely not what I thought when I was writing it. Like, I wasn't like, I'm writing this for teenage me. I don't, I just was like, here are my thoughts and like, let me put them into a story of some way. Like, there was no like plan. It's just, this is, I don't know. Yeah. No, it's more like I have something that I like a topic that I want to explore is usually how I start. So I think in a story, what topic do I want to explore? What do I really want to like think about and delve? And then I feel like it's like a first person exploration. And then I can create my person and then I can like weave through that topic and like discover new things by thinking about it from their point of view.
Oh, okay.
Me, I guess, again, I think like the teenage mindset, I guess, is the one to me that works the best for it because you are still hopeful and you are still open to like be willing to get swayed whichever way, like what new information that you're taking in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
When you're a little bit older, maybe you can parse that. I mean, some adults definitely can't, but I do feel like I guess if you try to write that as an adult, people might look at it as too childish, if that makes sense. Like a lot of like, how do you not already know that? And it's like, well, because there are adults that just don't know that. But it's more believable because everyone expects teens to not know anything. And I think, which is not what I'm saying. Obviously they know stuff, but you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it doesn't like stretch people's fragility. Am I pronouncing that right?
No, I think I know what you're saying. I feel like adult fiction has always intimidated me. Because the voice is just so like, I don't even know how to describe it.
It's not but why does it have to be like that?
I don't know.
I talk like that. It's probably why I like romance, because they're like, I'm like, oh, you talk like real people. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. I feel like adult fiction, or maybe I just haven't like read the right titles. A lot of it just like the voice doesn't like really capture me. And I don't know. I just feel like even though I am an adult, like in many ways, I still like, I don't know, feel younger than that, which might just be like a millennial Gen Z thing. I feel like a lot of us feel younger than we actually are, just because of life.
What do you mean? Earlier, I tried to insinuate we were the same age.
Yeah.
Sorry, by the way.
I don't know when I'll ever feel like a real adult. Like some days I wake up and I'm just like, oh, I'm like really like on my own. But
Honestly, I would say never. I have three
good.
like human children, and sometimes I'm like, oh, like I have 3 kids.
Wow.
Weird. Like, how did that happen? No, I literally, I mean, I remember like after I had, I think my second child, I was like about to walk out of a restaurant, and my friends were like, "Yeah, you have another baby," and I was like, "Oh my god, I have 2 children." Like, I don't feel old enough to have this many children. I don't think you ever grow out of it.
Wait, how old are your kids?
Well, I mean, they're all elementary school age, but they're all school age,
Wow.
right? That's what I'm saying. I'm not old enough to have that. I am. I'm totally am. But it still shocks me. I don't feel like it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I also think it's good to feel young. I don't think I ever want to actually feel old. Like as much as I joke about like my body feeling old, like on the inside, mentally, I don't feel old.
No, but did you see that article that just talked about how all the Alzheimer's research has been on a lie? That we spent like billions of dollars into Alzheimer's research and the person like made it up?
Oh, I did not hear about that.
Side note, everyone go Google it after this.
Wow.
I'm
So-
sorry, off topic again.
Oh, okay. I'll bring it back. Do you
I got good grades in school. I'm really like a troublemaker.
do you think you'll ever venture into adult, or maybe for
I am
like
entering into adult. Kind of. I mean, yes. So my next book is adult, technically. They're in college. Right. So it has to tip one way or the other.
Yeah.
But I want it to be adult. So it's a romance time.
Ooh.
I had to work in some anti-romance elements, or I just felt like I was like, well, it can't be like too upbeat.
Hmm.
It can't be all cheer, okay? Like that's like gonna make me break out in hives. I only read that. I can't write it. So it is technically an adult romance about a girl in college whose boyfriend breaks up with her, and she follows him to Mexico and brings her friends with her on a trip, but they don't know that he's there. So that's coming next summer.
So fun. I want it now.
It was pretty fun. And it's for MTV, and so I feel like I also, and now that it's adult, like it's so freeing. I'm like, I type as many curse words as I want. I'm like, underwear is flying off, whatever, like it's weird. I really feel like I've been left like at a party. I'm like, oh, spring break. Whatever I want, it's adult.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is the plus about adult. Like, really, like you can just go like as far as you want, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, it's very different, right? Because like I do feel like the difference between, right, like so there's sex in Boys I Know, but it's not like steamy sex. It's not like meant to be like sexy for the reader. Right. But then it's like that's something that you have to like stop and think about. And you're like, okay, how am I presenting this? Because I am presenting this to children. Like it's, you're adult, you're like, pick it up at your own risk. Good luck.
Yeah. Do you think you'll ever write for middle grade or younger?
Oh no. That's why I was kind of curious to hear about you. Like, did you intend to do middle grade? Because a lot of people make the jump, right? So a lot of the YA authors are making the jump either to adult or to middle grade.
Yeah.
And I jumped adult side. And so I don't know. Do you think you'll ever do adult?
So I actually have been working on an adult fantasy. Not sold yet, just like just something that like my agent and I have like gone a little bit back and forth on. But I think that might be something that's still like at least several years down the road, because I have like other projects, and then I probably want to break for a little bit.
What? Why? What do you mean? This life of constantly like.
Yeah.
I turned in like my draft for book 2 like I think a week before launch. And I was kind of restless, and I was like, oh, what do I do with myself? And you know what this mofo of a friend has to say? Start working on your next book pitch. And I was like, oh, how dare you? And then
Oh,
you know what? That was all I could think about for the week. And I was like, you jerk. I hate this industry. And I hate that you're right. But it's totally true. Like, no, you don't get to have a break. You should already be thinking of your next idea, even if you're not writing it.
yeah. Yeah, no, I always have ideas.
Of course you do. You published like 17 books in 3 years. I mean, I don't even know what's happening. Every time you announce another book, I'm like, same one. Katie's over here printing.
Yeah, no, I've given myself quite a lot of work for the time being. And after that, I think I will need a break. Like, it won't be a while. It'll be like, okay, we need to come back and just recenter ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you writing full time as well?
No. I have a
okay.
part-time job. But yeah, I don't work full time. I do part-time and then I have the kids.
Oh, well, that's all that's basically a full-time job.
Well, yes. Okay. I don't have a full-time paid job.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, yes. So I have a part-time job. I also have the kids, right? 3 kids, and then this is what I do.
Wow.
But I mean, I don't feel like I'm like killing myself to grind out. I mean, 1 book per year. I'm not like putting out multiples.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
what is like your like day in the life? Like, do you write every day or do you like write at a specific time?
none of the above.
Huh. That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to be better, but I'm trying to be more structured. Well, also it's summer, and so it's like been lawless. So last year it was great because that was the first year all my kids were in school. And so then that was the first time I finally had time to like sit. So that's the only reason why there's a book 2, to be honest, is because that's why I wrote it. Because, the first book took a while. I had all the kids at home. And so I was like writing during nap times, writing after they went to bed, and like, that crazy stuff that you hear moms talk about that you're like, I wouldn't even want to be a writer. Like I look back and I think, and I'm like, I don't even think I would do this again. Like if presented the choice, I would be like, oh, am I just tapping out little notes on my phone while I like wait in the pickup line? No. We don't get paid enough for that.
Yeah.
So, no, so I only type on my laptop. So now I do that while the kids are in school. So I try not to work weekends then. It makes it easier. But if I don't necessarily have anything to write, I just don't. I don't like make myself. I'm not very disciplined about it.
No, I honestly think that's very necessary because, well, the way I think about it is like the time when I'm not writing is just time for like my brain to rest or to be thinking about like ideas for like the next book or the current book or whatever. And all of that's like necessary for like the next time you do write.
No, it's true. But like so I don't know if this is how you are. I'm not going to generalize that all accountants are like this, but I feel like I chose accounting from the get-go for a reason, and it's because I work really well with the deadline. So like if there is a deadline, I will not miss it under any circumstance. Like I could be in the hospital and I'd be like, I'm going to meet this deadline.
Yeah.
But what happened with this book too is that no one asked for it. No one was pressing on me. No one gave me a deadline. And so I was like, la, 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 like, I mean, I like wrote the most of it. And then I kind of just stopped for like months. And then finally someone was like, are you going to show us a draft? And I was like, oh shit, when do you need that by? And they're like, a week? And I was like, oh, sure. And then I was like, done.
Wow.
And so I'm like, so this is the problem because you're working for yourself and there really aren't other people that can give you deadlines until you sell something.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like been the difficulty, because even if my agent tries to make up a deadline, I'll be like, I know it's not real, but with a real deadline, I might embarrass myself. I'm like, I will meet it. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm the same. That's not the reason why I chose accounting, but it is, I mean, it is like how I guess like I've been able to like meet my deadlines. Yeah, like if there's like pressure, I always want to like perform to like what other people expect. it's not even about me trying to meet the deadline for myself. It's like, oh, I have to make sure I don't like mess things up over there.
Right. I mean, see, so this is the hard thing. Like sometimes I think, oh my gosh, like I almost feel like unfortunate that my first job out of school was like this corporate lifestyle, because I feel like so much of it got drilled into me at like still a very impressionable age kind of thing, right? Like we were always told, your job is to make your boss happy. Like if your boss is happy, you are happy, right? The client is not the client. Your boss is the client. And so you serve at their whims, you know? And it's like, if you're in such a toxic culture and then you internalize that, like it's been really difficult to get out of that pattern, right? I also grew up playing sports. So it's like the same thing. I'm like, I perform really well to terrible, like unrealistic expectations, sort of like angry if you don't meet them. Like I'm like, on the job. But if people are like gentle, like you take the time that you need, I will never turn anything in. So it's not great for this particular lifestyle. So I'm having to like relearn everything.
Yeah. I mean,
there's really no one to disappoint but yourself.
Yeah. Do you think that you'll ever return to something like accounting or something with like a more of a deadline?
I thought about returning to accounting, but believe it or not, I am like unemployable because my skills are outdated. So I have to do like brush up. Well, no, the problem is that, oh, wow. Anyway, I just said that. The problem is that I did tax and not audit. And so most of the jobs are for people with auditing experience.
Oh, okay.
And so like and not just tax, but like my background was very specific. I was in corporate consolidated multinational corporation, whatever. Right. So there's only so many of those that'll have like an in-house tax department.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like I don't have the same experience. Like my expertise is very narrow.
Yeah.
Right. So like, unless I were going to be like, I'm going to go like work for Target in their tax department, you can't just like get any old regular accounting job.
Yeah. Okay. So
you heard it here first, folks. Do not go to tax.
I don't really know that many writers who have done accounting or have an accounting background also. Actually, I feel like you might be the only, I'm trying to think of another YA author I might know. I know one in finance, but I
know one other accountant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how, I guess like what made you interested in like both of those?
Well, I chose accounting, like, I actually think I was very good for accounting. Like I like all the structure and the organization. I enjoyed doing taxes. I still, I like, it was great. Everything's logical. Everything is mapped out. Right. And like the nice thing about it is like, right, you have your balance sheet, like it has to check out, so it'd be like most of my days would be spent like searching out this number. Why doesn't this balance? Where has this number gone to? Right. And so I really liked it because everything is super organized. You check everything off. Someone's checking your work. There's all these like internal systems in place that I really enjoyed, like a very organized work culture. And so that was part of why I chose it. And also because quite honestly, it's the highest paying job out of school with only a bachelor's degree, and you don't need a master's, right? You can get paid more, but like you can get employed immediately with a bachelor's. And I was like, great. And this is probably the highest paying job. Suits me, done. So that's how I chose it. And so I think that's sometimes like why I have a hard time working on my own, because I don't, right? If somebody came and like imposed all these structures, I would probably be like an amazing writer, but I'm like, oh, I need somebody to come and like, into my life,
It's hard sometimes. It really is.
But then, you know what? The whole time I was there, people kept being like, I can't believe you're an accountant. So the big joke was that they used to tell me I had too much personality to be an accountant.
You have a great personality.
Really? Yeah, I can't believe you're in accounting. You have too much personality. So I think that's probably partly also why it didn't work out. And then I was like, writing, you can have as much personality as you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
No structure.
I kind of agree. No offense to accountants, but you're very fun, and I've never met a fun accountant.
What you said? Oh, Katie, I'm sorry. Ouch. Oh my God, Katie. Oh.
No, to be fair, in my accounting program, there were a lot of people who like accounting was like their whole like personality, and it wasn't like a very fun personality. Let's just put it that way.
All right, let's stop slandering accountants before we lose our.
We're allowed to. I paid my dues.
We have some questions. We have a lot of questions from Ryan. So I think we're going to do all the questions from Ryan.
Dear God, shut up.
And then we're going to do the question from Jazz. But first, Ryan asks, what were your favorite YA books growing up, or some of your recent reads?
Ooh, okay. Well, I see. Was I supposed to read those before, or were we always going to save them from when you came in? Just so I can
always save them for the end.
How bad should I feel? Okay, great. I don't feel bad at all now.
Yeah, no, you're doing great.
So, you know what? I read a ton as a kid, but weirdly not a lot as a teen. Like when I was a kid, I was like reading Sweet Valley High in like elementary school. So like I read all the YA inappropriately early and then like didn't read for a section of time and then now read a ton. So it was like only in that middle gap. So I don't know that I have a favorite YA book growing up, but I definitely have recent reads that I love. So get you ready. Number 1, Messy Roots. It is a graphic memoir by Laura Gao. Good. Amazing. Love it. Read it. Number 2, All That's Left in the World by Eric J. Brown. Dystopian, queer, end of the world fiction. It like will make you bawl your eyes out. It's amazing. If you liked They Both Die at the End, read this one. Okay, and number 3, I just read The Loophole by Naz Katoub. It's about like a magic genie who takes this queer Muslim boy on a trip all around the world to go searching for his missing ex-boyfriend.
That's so cool. I love that premise. Also, you said Sweet Valley High, and that was like a little bit before my time, or like it was dying as.
I feel like you're being really kind, and I feel like this is the 1996 thing all over again.
I was born in 98, so like.
Yeah. You're being very gentle about it.
Yeah, no, we don't have to talk about age, but all I'm saying is that Sweet Valley High was a little more, I associate it with the 80s for sure. But yeah. I still found like old beat up copies and I loved it so much.
It's on my shelf right now. I'm sure my kids will dig into them one day and be scandalized.
Oh my God, it's so good.
YA.
Old little like tattered copies of YA books from like the 80s they're essential to life.
For all the juicy stuff was.
All right, and then Ryan also asks, what's the toughest challenge you had writing this book?
Finishing it? Probably editing it. I it was my first book. I had no idea what I was doing. It wasn't like I had sat around studying craft books. I wasn't an English major, right? I was a business major. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just writing. And so I think the hardest part was figuring out how to write a story properly and like make it marketable. You know, because I'd be like, well, I enjoy reading this. And it's like, well, of course you do. You wrote it. But I think at the time you don't realize that that's why you like it. You genuinely think like, no, this is good. Mm-hmm. And it's not. It's never going to be good. Your first draft of your first book will never be good. But I was like, no, I think this is good. I think this is going to be different. So I think the hardest thing is like accepting reality and being like, no, actually, it's not good. And how do you fix it?
You're the first writer ever to have a good first draft.
I mean, right, exactly. But like when people have babies and everyone thinks when their baby is born, like, this is surely the cutest child who has ever lived. And then you look back and you're like, wow, that thing looks like a gremlin. But you always think it.
Well, yeah, like it's kind of interesting because I've found that being a writer is about fluctuating between, I think Katie touched on this earlier, but fluctuating between like delusional self-confidence and then just like accepting that sometimes the words you write are garbage, and then flipping right back to that delusional self-confidence.
I think to be an artist, you have to have delusional self-confidence.
Yeah.
Because how else are you going to put art out into the world? You put art out into the world for the exact purpose for it to be critiqued. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like regular making art. That is its sole purpose. Its sole purpose is to put it out for other people to then pick apart and like give their opinions on it. So sometimes I feel like I give a little leeway to actors. I'm like, well, of course they're assholes. Like, I mean, you kind of have to be.
I mean, yeah, when the thing that brings you joy is getting constant feedback from people, it can't be, that's not sustainable without a little bit of an inflated ego.
Right, or a drug problem. Another, well, I mean, it's kind of true.
Well, you know, writers and alcohol. I'm not going to elaborate on that for the sake of my job. All right, let's switch to Jazz's question really quick. What has been the highlight of your debut experience so far?
Oh, hey, Jazz. You know what? We were sitting next to you at our table. So Jazz and I went to the Children's Institute, and we got to like read a little excerpt and present our books, and then we got to like sit in this, you know, we got to do our first like author signing, and we just had huge stacks of ARCs, and like people stood in line to meet us, and it was surreal. Like, it was insane. Like, I'm like, I cannot, you don't even know me, right? And people are like, I stood in line and waited to meet you. I'm like, I don't stand in line for anything. You know what I mean? Like, I see a line and I'm like, San Francisco, everybody loves lines. If there's a line, like, people will get into it, and sometimes they don't even know what it's for. And no, that's not a joke. It really does happen. And so I'm like, you're queuing up to like meet me? Like, that's so wild to me. Like, I want to be like, do you know that I used to be a CPA? Will that change your mind? Because it used to be parties. Like, I would be like, I'm a CPA, and people would be like, oh.
I joke with no personality.
Well, this is what I joke with so my husband's a fashion designer, and I was like, you're so annoying, because it does not matter what job I have. No one is going to think my job is cooler. Designer, you design your own line. Oh, okay. And then once I had a book out, he was like, it's all people ask me about. Like, oh my God, your wife wrote a book? That's amazing. And I was like, finally. 2 years, but you know what? My job's finally cooler than yours. People want to talk to me now.
Ryan, I just want to say thank you for the interesting questions, because I love this question. If June watched the last TV show or read the last book you read, what would her review be of it?
I'm really glad you asked that. The
last TV show you watched?
Oh, TV show? No. Oh my God, what did I just... I will say I watched a movie last night that I thoroughly enjoyed called Straight Up, maybe? It's an indie film. It's basically about a guy who has been gay his whole life, and he decides maybe he might be straight because he can't find love. And then he starts dating a girl, and they just have zero physical intimacy, but they're basically soulmates. And the whole relationship is like them sorting through like sexuality, gender roles, basically all of the same things that I like to talk about nonstop. So I think June would like it because I made her, and so she has to.
Approved. June seal of approval.
Anyway, it is an indie film, and it is on Netflix, and I enjoyed it.
Well, I'm very glad. That sounds really interesting, actually. As someone who has had many a platonic soulmate.
Well, yeah, because it was sort of like, well, how do you decide what love is, right? Like, that was their whole thing, because like they were basically like, we love each other, but at the same time, I'm not romantically interested in you at all. Like, can we make a life of this, even though we're compatible in every way except sexually?
Sorry, my dog he wants to be the star of the show now. Let's see. Oh, I love this one. If June got back to the future and met you when you were her age, would you get along with each other, and would you want to hear about the future from her? Yes. Okay, I think I read that right. Are you good? Do you need me to break that down a little?
I'm going to say
you and June would get along.
I'm just going to go forward and say yes. I want to hear.
I think you and June would get along. I think mostly because I think every novel has a little bit of self-inserting, just a little bit at least. And I think we all kind of want to believe that we would be friends with our main characters. Unless you wrote like American Psycho.
Wait, is your girl like a villain? Do you want to be best friends with your girl? Hold on, before we just assume.
Well, you know, you can have morally complex friends, I guess.
Didn't she kill someone?
Who?
Maybe. Oh no, she just disappeared. No, I don't know. You'll have to read to find out.
Ooh.
Seriously though, would you want to hear from her? Or would you be friends with her? There's no wrong answer.
I
It's
feel like,
okay if you say no, her feelings won't be hurt.
yeah, but like not close.
Other acquaintance friend, totally fair.
Yeah, like that.
Like coworker you get lunch with.
Yeah.
Work
Because I
friend.
think I would have the sense not to get too close.
All right. I think that is going to be the last question for our night, just because we are getting towards the end. And I want to leave some time for Anna to say some closing notes, anything that comes to mind. You can fully just say buy my book or else. I would not recommend it, but
I'm gonna say or else. I feel like that doesn't fit the vibe, right? Or like, oh my god, buy my book. I'm so sad. More like that. Like you're like, oh god, okay, just make it okay. All right. That's the vibe I'm going for. If you're not deeply uncomfortable reading this, then I have failed. You should be deeply, deeply uncomfortable.
Interesting sales pitch.
What? I love being uncomfortable. Is that not a good sales pitch? Like I love when I read it, like when I'm like watching a movie and I'm like, oh, I'm like so conflicted. Right? Like I'm like, oh god, like I'm uncomfortable watching it. It's the best.
I'm just always uncomfortable, so I can't do it.
You know what? I'm gonna work on that.
But yes, please support the book. I promise you won't be uncomfortable the whole time.
I also think it's funny, but apparently I can't make that guarantee.
Well, you're funny, so of course the writing's funny. Like,
but if you don't find me funny, then you probably won't find the book funny.
If you don't find Anna funny, you're banned. You're banned from all future bookshop events. No, but buy the book is what we're trying to say. And where can we find both of you?
Like online? What do you mean?
No, in person. No.
Want to give you my address? I don't know what's happening, but I'm uncomfortable. But like not in the same way that I am with the book.
I believe that is your Twitter handle, yes?
Oh, wait, I gotta go back to comments. Sorry, I'm 100 years old.
Oh, I'll put my handle in the comments too.
Yeah, I'm self-pro. That's what you're here.
Like, I barely exist on Twitter now, and
how about that?
Yeah, I think I'm good. I am on Instagram though, and TikTok.
I know, but like everyone's leaving Twitter, and I'm like, that's the one I like. I'm old.
Oh, I've just seen too much. I've seen too much. I've had enough.
Well, follow these lovely authors on Twitter or TikTok or Instagram. Hunt them down, and
I don't even know where you typed it. I'm 100.
It's on the side. I'm pretty sure it's right.
I'm sure it's right. It's fine.
Okay. Have a good night.
Thanks for bearing with